I had a favorite pair and I had a special pair. My favorite pair were the ones that my father bought for me. I was one of 6 boys, so I got all the hand-me-downs. But on these particular shoes, my favorite pair were the ones I got when the others' feet were too small for me. My father had to buy me my own shoes. So those were my favorite ones. Now the special ones were the ones that, when I finished high school, well, I finished at 16, so had to find somewhere that would let a person work at 16. And my father was taking me to Atlantic City to work, and he gave me his only pair of dress shoes he had. The problem was that they were 9.5, my foot was 10.5. But they were special because he had sacrificed his only pair of dress shoes so that I could carry a pair of dress shoes to Atlantic City with me. Retroactively, I wish I could have spent some time in my father's shoes. I respected him very much. He had 8 kids and they all went to school, high school, and he was a laborer with several part-time jobs. And I don't know, and he was a farmer because he provided food for the 8 kids plus mom and himself. Prospectively, I was always fascinated with Mr. Scott's accomplishments, having come from Murfreesboro, North Carolina, to go on to get his advanced degree, et cetera. So I think overall, the persons that inspired me most are the shoes I wish I could spend some time in. And that negotiating segregation and lynchings and all that, how they were able to do that and come out whole has always been a puzzle to me, a wonderment for me. I came to John Wright in 1948. It's an old wood building, wood stove, cold as could be. Going to school was a task because we didn't have air conditioning, didn't have heat. So the people that got warm were the people who sat closest to the stove. And on the bus, of course, was the problem of no heat. All the heat on the bus was at the front part. So only the first couple rows got heat, the people in the back didn't. So obviously by the time they picked us up, we were sitting at the back. It was a short ride from there because we were 2 miles from school, but it was cold. And so there was a scramble at the end of the day to get a warm place on the bus. But the school was wonderful. And I remember what fascinated me most was when we went from the old school to the new school in 1952, and the showers were a new thing. And so they had, Mr. Scott and the Coach Narberry had to teach us how to use a shower. Many of us didn't have running water at the time, and so we were used to taking baths in the circular tubs in the kitchen on Saturdays. But here at school, you could take a shower, and you had to learn to do that. And the problem with that was that many people didn't have towels to bring to school. And a change of clothes was out of the question. But showering this was the one time you know you had a chance to shower. The other thing was, what was fascinating about this school was that it had an intercom system. And Mr. Scott, the principal, could communicate with the whole building by intercom. And I recall another where when phones began to proliferate, because that was before 1952, 53, there weren't any phones in the neighborhood, and phones began to come into the neighborhood along the paved roads. And they had a special assembly to teach people how to answer phones. You know, you let it ring 9 times before hanging up, because people may be in the garden working and they have to come, that kind of thing. And it had party lines, so you had to learn to allow the other 3 or 4 people using the same telephone number, same telephone line, an opportunity to talk without listening in and making childish jokes. And so these were all lessons that were being taught. And, but this was also a time when we were being taught how to dress. And so the new school, it seemed, made a difference because we weren't allowed to wear jeans. And the dichotomy of this thing was the girls couldn't wear pants. They had to wear socks that met the skirt. The dichotomy was, and they couldn't touch guys, and guys couldn't touch them. You couldn't hug, couldn't, that kind of thing. And yet you'd ride by the high school up the street 2 miles away, where the white kids were sitting on the lawn, hugging and kissing and smoking cigarettes, and wearing shorts from time to time. And it was fascinating to me because I was bothered by that for a long time, but then I came to believe that our principals, our educators believed that we were not just as good, but probably better, because we had more adverse conditions and we were going to present ourselves as better. And so some of the things that we were not allowed to do came from this situation. One of my big influences was, the education influence was my mother. My mother was a teacher. She finished Virginia State in 1927 and was the first certified black person, first person black to be certified to teach high school in Spotsylvania County. And because there was a need for her in elementary schools, when I was young, she went from one-room school to the other one-room school. There were several in the county. And she taught at those one-room schools and took me with her. Now, that I must have been 3, 4, 5. So I was in the class with people who were first through 5 grades in the one-room school. And so I was doing the homework that they were doing, I was doing the reading that they were doing, et cetera. And little did I know that the education I was getting was really a solid education. As I went into elementary school, I became more playful, sillier, but the teachers, the influence of the mentors and the teachers and the principals always brought me back to center and caused me to want to do better. And I was inspired by the male teachers that we had. We had 5 male figures in the high school, and that was those were the law enforcement officers. And so it was never, you never had an opportunity to overact, because they would call, if you get out of line, the principal was enough to deter anybody who wanted to be a thug or to be disruptive. And if that didn't work, they would always call the coach. Everybody was afraid of the coach. Don't know why, don't know he ever hit anybody, ever whipped anybody, but we were afraid of him. Maybe as much respect as fear. But in life, there are times when I began to act silly, and I now believe that there was a time for me to act silly. I believe that there were times when I would be disruptive, and I think that was probably a phase also. But then I was always encouraged that no matter what my behavior was, that I was better than I thought I was, and that how I was perceived was as much as important as how I really was. And so I was encouraged by all of my teachers. My mother had taught several of the teachers, so this was an intergenerational relationship. The teachers would stop by the house. They'd tell my mother when I was doing wrong. They stopped by the house for my mother to mentor them. And so, and I also went to church with my teachers, with my principal. I didn't know what I wanted to do because I finished high school at 16, had no idea what I wanted to do. All I knew is that I didn't want to go back to the fields. and whenever it took to get away from that, I do. And I really didn't know I was capable of college work. And at some point, My brother introduced me to my undergrad school. I went down, and when I took the test, I realized that I was maybe one of 3 people who didn't have to take remedial courses, which means that I got something here at John J. Wright. And, and I didn't know how to compete with people other than the people I had known in my small community. And as I went on through undergrad school, I realized that I was quite capable, became a leader in the civil rights movement in undergrad school. And after finishing undergrad school, I got an offer to go to dental school or law school. I chose law school on a full scholarship. And for the first time, I'm cast into a situation where my instructors are white. Some of the instructors are white. Some of the students are white. Now, I had never been interacting with white people on an educational level. And I was intimidated the first semester in law school, didn't talk. And then, because those guys were coming from Berkeley, California, the free speech movement, and they were eloquent and loquacious. And I was intimidated by these suave people. And when the grades came back the first semester, all my courses, I was 95 and above in my scores. And some of these other guys who were my friends, who were eloquent and loquacious and from these prominent other schools, Berkeley, et cetera, I realized maybe they're not any smarter than I am. And so from that point on, I became a leader in law school and established friendships that I maintain until this day. But I came out of a segregated system where we had so much less than the white kids right up the street there. We had the secondhand books that they passed down. We had desks that were given to us with derogatory words about my race engraved in them, but they were given to us because the white kids got new desks, and we got the other ones. And I feel that generation had the ability to overcome it. I think it was the greatest generation probably ever, that I can imagine ever. We were heading into the civil rights, out of segregation, into integration, into civil rights. The community was intact, the value systems were well instilled, and they were all similar value systems. We had the same parents under the same Christian tutelage who believed pretty much in the same value systems. And so it was relatively easy because everybody, all the grown folks, monitored the behavior of everybody else's kids. And so we knew what was expected in up the street because we knew that they had the same value system that my parents had. You know, so you wouldn't be drinking, you wouldn't be kissing girls and trying to, because you knew that my parents didn't approve of it with our sisters, and their parents didn't approve of it. It was easy. It was, and I'm so grateful that I came through a segregated system. I really am. That I just believe it's the best time in my life was those years between high school and completing law school. That's a hard thing. The accomplishments are difficult because I don't believe I did anything more than I should have done. In fact, I don't think I did as much as I should have done. And because I started from a father who had been a coal miner, a laborer, 7th grade education, grandfather who never went to school, grandmother who never went to school, grandfather born in slavery, and all his ancestors born in slavery, and cast out of slavery to fend with no skills other than farm skills. And somehow they were able to convey to us the one thing we knew: work or don't have. If you wanted something, the only choice you had in getting it was to work. It never crossed my mind to take from somebody else what they had, and I never really wanted anything that somebody else had that I couldn't afford to get for myself. Never wanted it, never envied, uh, don't aspire to what other people have. But I do believe that work and learning to go through tribulations and to keep moving forward was the greatest asset that I was given by my people. And that is what has sustained me. You know, I've been injured, critically injured, aborted death a couple times. Uh, and each time I failed a lot of times. Failed in business, failed in many things. But what I knew was that quitting was not an option because I never saw anybody quit. I saw people get up and go to work when they were sick, I saw when they had no paid leave before fair labor standards and all that stuff. And so I knew, and I wanted my son to see his father working and providing. And that's what I've been able to do, work and provide. And I know clients, I've been practicing 35 years, and I know clients who have never seen a man get up in the morning and go to work. Never seen it. Never seen a man come home in the evening and mom has prepared food. Never seen it. And my mother worked in the fields and came in to cook, and we ate 3 meals a day. My father would get home from his last job at 10 o'clock at night, and mother would get up and cook. And those things just seem normal to me. And so I'm frustrated, and when these things are not occurring in this current generation. But I believe I was sustained, and I don't think if it had not been for segregation, if it had not been for all the setbacks that my people endured in this community, I don't think I would have had the incentive to go on. I may have gone to dental school, but I figured, I believed that law was the answer, because I Thurgood Marshall, about that time, 1954, and they were beginning the Prince Edward County situation and Brown versus Board of Education. I believed that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to go fight. All I wanted to do was to make sure that people I knew got fair chances in court, and they weren't getting them before. You know, there wasn't a black lawyer in the neighborhood, wasn't one in the county. Only two have come out of the school here. Arthur Burnett, who went on to become a judge, and me. That's it. And so I believe that we needed to be in a position to advise people on how not to lose your land, how not to have your land taken, how not to go to jail when other people ain't. It's hard to explain. And as I have come back, I've seen we now have black judges, we now have all these other things, but I've been inspired and I'm confirmed by where we are today. It bothered me when I saw the shoe theme. And I don't want to be identified by or judged by my shoes. You know, I really don't. And I understand that this is a standing on somebody's shoulder theme, which makes it easier to do. But when you start talking about filling shoes, I filled my daddy's 9.5 shoe with a 10.5 foot. and so, but my shoes may shine. I don't want to be identified by my apparel. People who know me know my soul, they know my spirit, they know how I will respond to certain the reaction I'll have to certain stimuli. And so I want to be known that way. I'm a gentle person, not a principal, not imposing my principle on anybody else. I share with my kids and my mentees the consequences of doing this or that. And you make your own choices. I made a lot of bad choices in life. I ended up in the hospital on several of them, you know. And I lived. So the lesson there was, if you live, they say it makes you better. But you gotta live. But I'm convinced that my son knows that, and all the other kids, I've met so many kids that didn't have fathers, because I did juvenile practice law for years. And some of these kids, I believe that I kept them out of jail. I believe I diverted a lot from going to jail, and I dissuaded a lot from going to jail. And nothing is more pleasant than to see a guy, 45 years old with a PhD or practicing medicine, and he tells me, you know, there's a fellow over town who went on to become superintendent of schools in Fairfax County, Virginia. And he tells me that he went to my undergrad school because I had a conversation with him, and he liked the way I walked when I came home from school as a freshman, because I'd never been smarter than I was as a freshman. But he was impressed, and he went on to do wonderful things. And then there are other people who are, other guys who have come to me, and they tell me, you know, I didn't have a father, or my father was an addict, or my father was a drunk, but you directed me, and I am where I am because of your influence. That is so much more important to me than the kind of shoes I wear, you know. And shoes don't mean a thing if you ain't going nowhere. They don't mean a thing if you ain't got no feet. And so I was a little bothered by that shoe thing and anything, because I'm convinced that the shoes I can afford to buy, one pair, my father could have bought 100 or 200, but they don't impress me that way. You know, I feel good about where I am. I feel good about what I put on. Consequently, I don't have to buy a pair of shoes that someone else has because they cost $1 million, this guy on TV. You know, it's the most ridiculous thing in the world. And no matter what I put on, there's a song called The Gambler, and it says, there's a winner, every hand is a winner, every hand is a loser. Every pair of shoes I wear, some people like them, some people don't. They think I'm preposterous, that I'm a snob if I wear these pair of shoes. Another guy thinks I'm a slob if I don't. I'm snooty if I do, and I'm unsuccessful if I don't. Don't want to impress anybody that way. All I want to do is end my life feeling good, and the persons whom I influence know that I feel good about myself. And I feel good about where I am, from whence I've come, and I'm satisfied. I recall my first year in law school, my instructor was teaching evidence, and he had a review before the examination that ran 24 hours. The dumbest thing I've ever seen. People sleeping through all this stuff and all. But it was effective. And I said to him, I said, Professor, I think it's commendable that you're willing to sacrifice and do all this other stuff, but I'm tired. He said, Mr. Dyson, you know, I'm an old man, and I discovered along the way that I've never seen anything accomplished by anybody who wasn't tired. And so the parallel being, you can never quit. You can get tired, you can never quit. You can relax, you can loaf, you can never quit. Which means that, and the theory is that if you ain't going forward, you're going backwards. And so standing still won't do it. You gotta always move forward, even if it's inch at a time. And that's what I want people whom I've come to influence to know, that failures mean absolutely nothing. It's just a barometer to know when you're supposed to start again. I'm of the ilk that, scripturally speaking, to whom much is given, much is expected. I believe that I was given a lot, no things. I was given no things, just a lot of inspiration, and and I can't. Each time I think about an option of quitting, it never entered my mind, and because I've seen prior generations survive on so much less. Uh, and I'm convinced that things are not making us happy. Um, and I'm thinking when you're looking at my shoes and they shining, you think that's I don't want anybody to think that's a reflection of my soul. Because if you're only seeing the outside of me, don't get happy because you think the inside feels good. If you're seeing the outside of me, don't get sad because I'm smiling and inside you're not. It means absolutely nothing. Uh, and if you don't do something for somebody, I just believe we ought to be doing something for somebody at all times. And I believe that there's such a need for our younger generation. There's such a need for somebody to say something encouraging to these kids, to try to elevate their spirit, to let them know there are options. None of them are easy. And you can be broke while not trying, or you can try and take a chance at not being broke anymore. But if you don't do something, you won't have something. That's as simple as that. You don't have to do anything. And if you hope to spend your life outside of an institution, you got to comply. There are rules. There are rules in my house. There are rules in my daddy's house. If I wanted to stay there, I had to behave in a certain way. There are rules in my house. If my kids want to stay there, they got to behave a certain way. There are rules in my mentoring. If you want me to mentor you, then you got to behave a certain way. And I don't think if you've tried before me and things didn't work well for you, maybe trying with me, some of the things I suggest may work. That's what I did. When I tried, when I was told by people who knew that I shouldn't do certain things and I did them anyway, I didn't get the results I wanted, but I knew that maybe if I try the approach that was told to me by somebody else, maybe so. Had nothing to lose. But I was always convinced that I wasn't going to jail for anybody. I wasn't going to jail, and I didn't plan to be homeless. Been broke many times. Didn't plan to be homeless. So keeping relationships, and this is bothersome. You know, tomorrow there's a homecoming at Savannah Baptist Church. When I was a kid, everybody who ever went to Savannah Church came back home for the third Sunday in August. This year, I'm in Williamsburg and I'm seeing people who belong at the church, but they're away doing something else this weekend with family. Coming home was an influence. You know, it was good to see the guys come down from New York with the big Dynaflow Buicks, even though they were janitors up there and GS1s in the government. But they looked good. And they inspired me because I wanted to look like they did. Didn't realize how they felt. And as I got to know them, I realized how they felt. And I realized that looking like them wasn't the answer. Feeling like they did wasn't the answer. I had to make my own, I had to define this for myself. There's a song, Dance With My Father Again, Luther Vandross. Yes, as, all of my girls, I have a special relationship with all of my girls, and with the guys too, but obviously they don't dance on your shoes. But yes, it's been fun. They now, of course, dancing, they've learned to dance a different style than I. So beyond the dancing on the shoes, I don't dance because they laugh at me. I'm archaic. I'm a relic. But yes, dancing on it, and I'm often in remembrance of it when I think about that song, Dance With My Father Again.